The Adventure of the Clampets. Come and listen to a story about a man named Jed. He was a poor mountaineer who barely kept his family fed through the long and difficult seasons in the hills. And then one day, while he was out hunting and shooting at some food to put on the dinner table, something truly miraculous happened. Up through the ground came a bubbling crude substance. Oil, that is, black gold. Texas tea. Well, the first thing you know, old Jed is a millionaire. The kinfolk were amazed and told him that he must move away from there. They said that California was the place he ought to be. So they loaded up the truck and they moved to Beverly Hills, that is, swimming pools, movie stars, the Beverly Hillbillies. The sun was rising over the grand mansion in Beverly Hills when Granny came rushing out with a look of pure terror on her face. "A mountain lion is at Jethro," she cried out to Jed. "Granny, if you were to tell me that Jethro had encountered a mountain lion, I would find it hard to believe," Jed replied calmly. "I tell you it is true," she insisted while waving her arms. "I sent Jethro to the roof cellar, and when he did not come back, I went to see what was keeping him. And there stood a great big mountain lion licking his chops. He had my baby boy right out from under his arm." Jed looked toward the driveway and asked if the truck was gone. Granny snapped back that mountain lions do not eat trucks because they are flesh eaters. Jed explained that he figured if the truck was gone, that might tell them what happened to Jethro. "I told you what happened," Granny shouted. "He was bit by a mountain lion in the roof cellar. Now, are you going to get your gun and shoot him before he eats the rest of the family?" Jed looked toward the dark cellar door and noted that it was kind of dark in there. He suggested that what she had seen might not have been a mountain lion at all. Granny was adamant. "I tell you I have seen him. There is a wild, violent beast in the roof cellar. We have been out here in Beverly Hills for going on 8 years now," Jed reminded her. "The wildest thing we have seen yet is that movie star who lives down the street." Granny asked which one he meant. "The one with the long blonde hair, who wears those wild clothes and jewelry and walks with a wiggle," Jed said. "You know the fellow." Granny would not be swayed from her fear. "I tell you there is a mountain lion in my roof cellar. Now, are you going to shoot him, or do I have to do it myself?" Jed took a spoonful of his breakfast and said, "As quick as I have this cereal, I will take a look." Granny was appalled. "How can you sit there eating cereal at a time like this?" Jed sighed and admitted that it was not easy knowing a mountain lion was eating their kinfolks and Jethro. Then a new worry struck Granny. "Where is Ellie? Maybe the mountain lion ate her too." "I sent Ellie out to get the morning mail." Jed told her to sit down and get a hold of herself. Just then, Ellie Mae walked in with a stack of envelopes. "Here is the mail, Father," she said. Jed smiled and told her she did fine. Granny immediately told Ellie to run and fetch her father's gun because he was going to shoot that mountain lion in the roof cellar. Ellie Mae looked confused and said she was not going to let anyone shoot Herman. "Herman?" Granny asked. Ellie explained that she got him yesterday at the animal farm and that he was her new pet. Granny was horrified and claimed that the pet had eaten her cousin Jethro. Ellie insisted that Herman would never do that, but Granny told her that her father was fixing to shoot him anyway. "Please do not do it, Father," Ellie pleaded. Jed looked at the situation and told Ellie to do what she had to do, but kinfolks came ahead of Herman. Ellie looked at her father and asked if he was really going to do it. Jed looked down at his bowl and said the only thing he was not going to do for sure was eat his cereal. He decided to give it to Herman instead since the creature probably loved it. "Herman, come get your breakfast," Ellie called out. Granny jumped back and shouted that she would bring no man-eating beast in here. Ellie tried to reassure her that there was no man-eating beast and that Granny should just take her word for it. Granny demanded that they get that vicious killer out of her kitchen. Ellie led the animal away, saying they had better leave. Granny huffed and said she told them she had seen a man-eating beast. Jed watched them go and told Granny that if she would fetch him another bowl, she would see a man eating cereal. He began looking through the mail and noted that somebody had sent them the latest copy of the Silver Dollar City News. Granny asked who sent it, but Jed said the paper did not say. "Well, doggy," Jed exclaimed, "guess who is getting married?" Granny asked who it was. "Alverna Bradshaw's daughter," Jed revealed. "Big Mouth Bradshaw?" Granny asked in disbelief. "Are you telling me that the homiest girl in the hills has got herself a fellow?" Jed confirmed it was there in black and white. Granny was stunned. "I do not believe it. I am afraid it is true, Granny," Jed said. Granny began to panic about the implications. "Do you realize what this means?" Jed joked that it meant he was not going to eat his cereal, but Granny was serious. "You have got to get Ellie Mae married right away." Jed asked why this sudden rush. Granny explained that Big Mouth Bradshaw was 2 days younger than Ellie, and if she got married before Jed's daughter, they would be disgraced. Jed did not think so, but Granny insisted that Ellie would die of shame. She even claimed that Jethro, being a boy with a lot of pride, might leave home over the embarrassment. Jed doubted that as long as they had food at the house. Granny insisted it was no joking matter. "We have got to take Ellie back to the hills and get her married right away. There is no time to lose." Jed asked why they had to go back to the hills. Granny said it was because that was where the men were the marrying kind. Jed asked if they could talk about it after breakfast because he was powerful hungry, but Granny said they had to settle the matter right now. Jed finally agreed and suggested Granny go next door and ask Mr. Drysdale if he would keep an eye on the place while they were gone. Granny thought it was a good idea and left. Jethro walked in, and Jed asked where he had been. Jethro proudly announced he had been to college. Jed was impressed and asked how long he had been going. Jethro said it was his first day and that he had fallen in with a college crowd that made him realize how much he had been missing. Even though he had graduated the 6th grade, he felt there was still more he could learn. Jed said he was proud of him. Jethro said the fellows were a real nice bunch and very smart. Jed asked if any of them were unmarried. Jethro said all of them were as far as he knew. Jed asked if Jethro could fetch home some of those college fellows and introduce them to Ellie. Jethro promised to fetch a whole bunch of them so she could take her pick. Jed thought that would be just dandy. He noticed there was just enough cereal left for one more bowl and offered it to Jethro. Jethro thanked him and said there was nothing like a bowl of cereal. Meanwhile, at the bank, Milburn Drysdale was busy on the telephone. He was talking about the gold market in London and ordering $5 million in bullion. He was preparing to invest $50 million in a Greek shipping deal and $30 million in a Dutch oil syndicate. He was a man of high finance and great importance. His assistant, Miss Jane Hathaway, entered and said she had a favor to ask. She explained that the Clampetts were going on a trip and wanted him to keep an eye on the house and the animals. Mr. Drysdale was indignant. "The answer is no," he declared. He stated he was a bank president and not a caretaker, an international financier, and not a zookeeper. He told Miss Jane to go tell Granny that right now. When Miss Jane asked why he would not tell her himself, he admitted that even though he had just invested $85 million, he could not afford to argue with those hillbillies. When Miss Jane asked why, he shouted that it was because it was their $85 million in his bank. Granny then arrived at the office and asked if Miss Jane had told him the news. Mr. Drysdale asked if they were going to Palm Springs or Lake Arrowhead. Granny said they were going to God's country, back home to the hills to get Ellie Mae a husband. Mr. Drysdale tried to convince her there were plenty of eligible men in Beverly Hills, but Granny was not listening. She said they would be leaving as soon as the truck was loaded and demanded their money. "All of it?" Mr. Drysdale asked in shock. Granny said Ellie needed a dowry. Mr. Drysdale warned her that she did not want to go back to the hills with $85 million, but Granny said it was better than nothing. Mr. Drysdale began to spiral, realizing that if they withdrew their money, he would be ruined. He told Miss Jane they needed a plan and that this called for action now. He grabbed a letter opener and Miss Jane screamed, asking what he was going to do. He said he was going to puncture the tires on their truck so they could not drive back to the hills. He calculated it would take 3 weeks to get new ones from the catalog. Back at the mansion, Granny was urging Jed to finish his cereal and get packed. Jed suggested they might not have to go if the college boys Jethro was bringing over were nice. Granny was skeptical, saying he had been looking for 7 years and all they had were beat-up bushes and an old maid daughter. Jed wanted to keep an open mind. Eventually, Jethro arrived with a young man named Mitch. Jethro introduced him as a college student he fetched right off the campus. Mitch had been to 12 colleges, which Jed thought was a dandy record. However, when Jed asked what he studied, Jethro explained that they did not study, they protested. They marched up and down holding signs. Jethro said he was carrying 3 subjects: down with the dean, down with the faculty, and down with the regents. He said tomorrow he was going to bust down the dean's door as part of the academic revolution for intellectual freedom. Ellie Mae appeared in what she called groovy threads she got at a swap shop. Mitch was impressed and asked if she wanted to go to college. Ellie said she reckoned so. Mitch said if they hurried, they could get there in time for the 12 o'clock cafeteria break, which meant they were going to break the cafeteria. Jethro wanted to help. Later, Mr. Drysdale and Miss Jane arrived. Granny was still there, and Mr. Drysdale tried to be overly affectionate to keep her from leaving. He told her he loved her and was happy she had not left yet. Granny demanded her money again, but Mr. Drysdale claimed the bank was closed. Jed told them he was pretty well set on going back home because he wanted to get Ellie away from the college boys who were not keepers. Mr. Drysdale pleaded with him to stay, saying there was no guarantee they would find a husband in the hills. Jed countered that if Big Mouth Bradshaw's daughter could get a man, Ellie could get a dozen. He spoke fondly of the hills, the turning leaves, trout fishing with Jim Owen, and hunting wild turkeys for Thanksgiving. He talked about staying for a white Christmas and the dogwood blooms in the spring. Mr. Drysdale realized Jed was describing a whole year. Jethro then announced that he was not going back to the hills because he was a college man now and wanted to pursue his education. He did not want to work with his hands anymore. He wanted to use his head and have a white-collar job. Mr. Drysdale, desperate to keep the money in the bank, encouraged this. Jed decided that if Jethro was so set on being a college man, they would leave him there with Mr. Drysdale. He asked Miss Jane to drive the rest of them to the airport. Mr. Drysdale panicked at the thought of being left with Jethro, especially when Jethro asked if he could call him Dad. As the family prepared to depart, the spirit of the hills remained with them. They were a family bound by love and simple values, even in the midst of the glittering world of Beverly Hills. Their journey was one of heart and humor, reminding everyone that no matter how much gold you find in the ground, the real treasure is the kinfolk you keep beside you.